Coming up this Saturday on Be On The Vibe, I'm joined by Chantel McGregor.
And, you know, it's little things that all feed into making that one gig different to the last and making it different to any other one that you're ever going to do. And I think that's the wonder of live music and performance. They're like, oh, we really love the Metallica song. Can you do the Metallica song? And it kind of just fed from that, where I was like, okay, these are the most requested songs. These are the ones that go down really well. Let's put them onto an album. And then it was like, oh, let's put two out because there's too many songs for one. Like Shed Sessions 1, Shed Sessions 2, and it was two separate, completely different things.
Because it does have a different vibe between the two of them. And, you know, you don't see many artists release two records in the space of, what, a couple of months?
Yeah, most people have got sense.
So I'm here with Chantel McGregor. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
A thing I like to do is kind of take a look at the early years of a musician. Of course, you know, that shapes who they're going to go on and be. So what first got you into wanting to become a musician?
Basically, my dad always played guitar. So we always had music around the house and in the car and stuff. You know, we'd sit around and we'd listen to Led Zeppelin and Free and Hendrix. And yeah, it was just always around me. And he always played. So I always sort of went over, and as soon as I could walk, I'd toddle over to him and detune it and stuff like this. So he was like, when I was 3, he said, we'll get her own guitar that she can detune and put dints in. And so he did. And I got a little half size. And it just went from there, really. He gave me sort of some, not lessons, but he taught me a little bit. And then when I was 7, they got me lessons properly. And I did that till I was 16. And yeah, just went from there.
Can you remember those kind of early shows? I mean, did you start off really young? Like going out to...
Yeah, I mean, I started sort of playing live when I was 12 in public. Because it was basically one of those things. If I had guitar lessons, and I was getting bored with it, really. I was, I didn't want to read music, and I didn't want to, learn Brown Eyed Girl for the millionth week that I never practiced it because it was boring from notation. So I wasn't interested in that. I just wanted to perform and things. So my parents were kind of like, right, she's either we're gonna sack lessons off and that's it, she gives up, or we need to find something that's going to engage her and make her actually interested in doing this. So they knew that I love performing and stuff. So they were like, right, we'll take her to jam sessions. So they found some jam sessions in Bradford and where I'm from. And every Sunday we'd go to the Melbourne in Bradford. And yeah, they just, the people there, the guys that get me up to jam. And it was all improvised. So it was kind of, I mean, there were, a load of people who liked smoking interesting things outside. And I was this 12-year-old girl wanting to just jam. And so they'd go outside and smoke the funny stuff and then come back in and we'd play Grateful Dead songs. And yeah, I wouldn't get told what key it was in. It was just like you get pointed at and do a solo and you're like, okay, yeah, okay. And yeah, you just improvise, and that's how I learned to improvise.
I mean, that's an interesting early education there, isn't it? Like, obviously the traditional road would probably be doing lessons for like a number of years, whereas you kind of very early went into that improvisation thing. I mean, I imagine that's like an invaluable thing for performing live at that point, to already have that.
Definitely for me. I mean, that's shaped how I've played forever, with that whole sort of very loose improvisation. I still have that in my shows now. Most of my shows, well, all of my shows, they're all the main songs, the songs, but then the sections in it we're soloing, it's all improvised. And yeah, I think without that sort of, not training, because it wasn't formal training, it was just like, every week going to jam sessions. Without that, I wouldn't be able to do how I play now. So, it was kind of my formative years was doing that, and it worked. Thank goodness.
I think growing up, kind of everybody has that first band or musician they really connect with. Did you have that?
Kind of. I mean, I loved Stevie Nicks. I've always loved
Mm.
Stevie Nicks, which obviously she's not a guitarist, but just kind of the enigma around her. And, when I was a toddler, my grandma she made me a twirly dress out of net curtains so that I could stand in the middle of the floor, twirl around and pretend to be Stevie Nicks while we put rumours on. And, that was like from being about two. So I always wanted to be Stevie Nicks, and then the guitar playing thing. I've just always listened to music, so just
Mm.
everybody I've always been inspired by.
Mm. I mean, obviously, when the two-part Shed sessions came out there, I mean, there was a lot of kind of a cross section. You know, we were seeing a bit of Radiohead, we've seen Jimi Hendrix. Has that always been? Have you always had that kind of really eclectic kind of taste?
Very much so, yeah. It's always been eclectic as mine,
Mm.
I mean, God, I used to listen to Hanson and stuff like that. One minute I'd be listening to like Metallica, then Jeff Buckley, then Hanson, then, so I've always been very, very diverse in what I've been into. Um, I've never kind of been one of those people that sort of closes off and just sort of says, oh, I only listen to guitarists, or oh, I only listen to, singers or singer-songwriters or whatever. It's never been that for me.
Mm.
It's always been very diverse. I mean, I love country music. Whenever I drive anywhere, I listen to country. I don't listen to, guitarists as such. Just I don't know, I've just always liked generally music, and I think that's a good thing because I think so many people do close themselves off and just say, oh, well, we only listen to, shredders. And it's like, yeah, but that's all you'll ever hear in your head, and you'll never listen to different things, or you'll never get inspired by different styles. And I think it's so important to open yourself up.
Mm. I mean, I see it a lot in kind of, your top musicians. They always have like they're into a certain artist or a musician that you would never expect them to be into. Like, I've seen people in the past where it's like, uh, you know, unusual jazz or something really offbeat, even though they're like, I don't know, a metal musician or something. And I think that really helps kind of build your identity as an artist, I feel.
It
I mean,
definitely does. Yeah.
mm,
I think, it would be so easy to say, oh, well, I grew up and listened to Hendrix, so I want to play like Hendrix. And it's like,
yeah.
why would you do that? He's already done it. Just put
Mm.
a Hendrix record on. What's the point of copying, And
This is
I do feel that, even though you have a genre and a style and you have your
mm,
own style of playing, I mean, God, I listen to different things. And, if I've been listening to like, I mean, I'm really obsessed with the guy called Mark Littieri at the moment. He's the guitarist from Snarky Puppy.
mm.
And I like got obsessed with one of his albums the other month. And I found myself like listening to it while I'm driving. Then I'll go do a gig and I'll be like, oh yeah, I've just stolen that little lick there. And thought about something a bit differently to how I normally would because of how he phrases things.
Mm,
And it's like just taking tiny little bits of inspiration and feeding it into your own playing, and then kind of like making it your own, then, interpreting it rather than copying it. And I think the more things that you listen to and surround yourself with,
mm,
the more of an amalgamation of that. But then that shapes how you play and it changes your direction. So it's interesting.
mm. Of course, we briefly touched on it there back in 2021, saw the release of that two-part Shed session thing comprising of covers. Am I correct in saying that, some of that was decided by, like, the track listing was decided by fans and then some of it was of your own choosing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, pandemic.
Of
So,
course.
everybody resorted to doing live streams practically.
Mm,
And so we did one, and it went on for a year and a bit, nearly 2 years, I think we did. Um, and it was like every week people would request songs, and even if you didn't know them, you'd give them a go.
mm,
Um, and trying different things out. And it didn't matter if it went wrong because you sat in your living room playing some songs on the internet, and who cares if it goes wrong, really? Nobody. So it was a really good opportunity to kind of try things out that you wouldn't normally do,
mm,
and just have a bit of fun with it without the pressure of, oh God, I've sold X amount of tickets at 19 quid a ticket and it has to be perfect. It was like, well, I am, because they're just watching it on Facebook. So,
mm.
you know it is what it is, and if you cock it up, it doesn't really matter. So it was one of those, and then people, they'd be like, "Oh, we really love the Metallica song. Can you do the Metallica song?" And it kind of just fed from that, where I was like, "Okay, these are the most requested songs. These are the ones that go down really well. Let's
Mm,
put them onto an album." And then it was like, "Oh, let's put two out because there's too many songs for one." And because of how lockdown happened as well, it was like the first bit I was stuck up north with my parents.
mm,
Um, and I had a studio shed thing in the garden, so that's why it was called the Shed Sessions. And the live stream was done up there. It was all acoustic guitar and vocals. And then I moved down to Cambridge with my boyfriend, and he's like an amazing keyboard player. So it was like, okay, I can do electric stuff now because we can do like keyboard stuff on it, and it's really interesting. So that was kind of like the second part of lockdown for me. So it was like Shed Sessions 1, Shed Sessions 2, and it was two separate, completely different things.
mm. Because it does have a different vibe between the two of them, and you don't see many artists release two records in the space of what, a couple of months.
Yeah, most
It's-
people have got sense.
I mean, it felt like you kind of, I don't know whether you were just enjoying what you were doing there, and it was just like, well, we've just got that much. Why not?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they were both separate. So it was kind of like,
Mm,
I mean, the first one, I must have recorded about four different versions of it in different rooms in the house. And it was all like, nope, don't like that one. No, the reverb's not right in this room.
mm,
And it was done like so many times. And then I'd edit it and mess it up. And it just been a complete mess. So I ended up just like finally just saying to Wayne Proctor, a friend of ours, I was just like, can you just deal with this? Because I keep faffing with it and messing it up. And I'm just going to send you these raw files. And if you can actually make them sound like proper, that'd be amazing. Because I just keep overproducing it and making it sound like a studio recording. And that's not what I want because that's not what it's meant to be. It's meant to be, recorded in the flat because that's all you could do at the time. You couldn't go into a
yeah.
studio. Um, but I was trying to make it into a studio thing, and it was like it's losing the feel of what it's meant to be. Um,
Mm.
so can you just like do it and make make it sound a bit, like I've recorded it in a wardrobe?
Um, Obviously that's been a couple of years. Do you have any plans moving forward for maybe a new record, maybe next year
Yeah,
or?
yeah, absolutely. I need to put one out. Wouldn't bother if I don't. Crikey, my dad's been nagging for like ever. Um, yeah, it is in progress. I'm writing it at the moment, and as soon as it's written, then I'll be developing it and putting it in the set. Some of the songs are in the set, and then recording it and getting it out there.
Mm. Do you have a particular approach or method when it comes to writing your own material? And I mean, with this new album in mind, have you kind of changed that approach over the years?
Other than procrastination, no. That's the only method I have. Yeah, it's for me, writing's a really weird thing. It kind of comes in like rushes. So it'll be like I'll lock myself away for like a couple of days, and then it'll be like, oh, I've got two songs written. And then there'll be nothing for like a month.
Mm.
And I have to literally lock myself away and just cram it out for like 2 or 3 days, get a bunch of things, and then walk away and leave it. Because if not, I'll just go over the same stuff and go, no, I don't like it. So I'm a real pain when it comes to writing. I'm just like, you know, I'm too critical, and I never like anything that I've written, and yeah, it never comes out because I don't like it.
I mean, I find that's a bit of a common thing. Everybody's like their own worst critic.
Yeah, I'm a nightmare for it. I can't listen back. So like when we did the live album, it was like, right, I've got to listen to this and like listen to it over and over and over. Because we sent that to Wayne, because Wayne produced that as well. And I was like, oh God, I've got to listen through this and listen out for any little bits that I'm not happy with. And this little the S is on this, the sibilance is too much, and there's a plosive there in this word.
Mm.
And I'm an absolute nightmare for it. And I think I drove him absolutely insane because it was like it went backwards and forwards about 30 times of me going, the S on this, can we just tone it down a little bit? And he'd be like, well, it's a live album. It's meant to be what it was on the night. And I'm like, yeah, I know that. But can we can we change this and can we EQ this a bit different? And this drum, can we just shift it a little bit? And he's like, no, that's what's coming out. And I'm like, oh.
I mean that was so well received, wasn't it? I mean, I can't remember who it was. It was like Guitar Magazine or something like that. They gave it like the one of the best
Yeah, it got
guitar
11.
albums of the last decade. Yeah,
Yeah, it was Guitar World magazine.
yeah, that was it. Guitar
Yeah,
World.
it was like the 11th best guitar album of the decade or something. I was like, what?
Mm.
But I'll take it.
I mean, it turned out all right. It can't be that bad.
Yeah,
The
I
S's
was
can't
so
have been that noticeable.
yeah, I was so chuffed. It was such a nice thing, and I didn't ever expect it. It was completely out of the blue as well. So I was just like, what? But it was a wonderful surprise and really good as well that, such a a thing that's, got a good reputation and stuff like that actually considered my album being decent. It's quite good.
More than decent. The last decade. I mean, come on. Of course, every time I look at your socials, I always see that you're gigging or touring. Obviously, you'll be off again on tour starting in September the 7th in Blackpool. I think there's something kind of really special about that whole live experience. Particularly now we've got it back. Are there any kind of songs in particular that you enjoy playing live? I mean, obviously, it's always got that different experience live.
Yeah, I mean, I always because we do a prog song that I wrote called April,
Mm,
and it's been in the set for ages, but because it's all improvised, it's different every night because it's an instrumental. So you can kind of mess with it and change it, and it's just fun to change it every single night. It's completely different, and I just really like that fact that it evolves and grows every gig, and
mm,
it's just fresh, and we're really really lucky that we have some fans that they come to every single gig. I mean,
mm.
one of our fans he's just done over well, he's just finished his 200th gig.
Wow.
Yeah. And he comes from
200.
Essex. I know, it's amazing. It's just incredible. And he comes from Essex and we'll be like in Scotland and he'll be
Yeah.
there. And he's such a wonderful man. And it's just like if people like that are coming night after night after night, if you play the same thing every single night, they're not going to do
Mm,
that because it's boring. And why would they? I want to see I don't want to see us every night playing the same thing. So it keeps it fresh and interesting for people like that do come to more than one gig,
mm,
and for us for playing it. It don't get stagnant because it don't get time to. It's always evolving.
mm. I mean, I think that's one of the great things about playing live and obviously you being live in particular. Um, it feels like that's the one time thing that night. Like that's your thing to take away because it's not going to be exactly the same.
Mm.
As you mentioned there, somewhere else it could be a bit different.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
that's for me is the specialness. Oh, weird word. the the special thing about a gig because it makes
mm,
it a personal experience on that one single night. It's never ever going to be recreated. It's never going to be the same. It might be the same songs, but they'll never
mm,
be the same way they're played or in the same order, even. I mean, I have a set list on stage every night, and I don't think I've ever stuck to one. It's just like,
okay.
nah. Um,
Does that
because it's
surprise the rest of the band? I mean, if you just
often, yeah. Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, should we do this one now? Yeah, we'll do that one. And it's because for me, it's like every single gig is different and
mm,
its audience response is different. So
mm,
you might do a gig and it's got, if it's a seated gig, it's going to have a different feel to it to a standing gig. And it might be different, a different area of the country. So you might be playing somewhere that's, a different sort of demographic to a different place. And or a different age group to a different place or something.
yeah,
And people like different things. And I find, if we're playing somewhere and they seem to be vibing a bit more on the quieter stuff rather than the
mm,
full out rock stuff, then I'm like, okay, well, I'll extend the acoustic bit a little bit and I'll put in the more slower songs that are a bit more thoughtful rather than just the whole way through. And it's kind of like constantly reading the audience and reading how people react at the end of the songs or halfway through the songs.
mm.
and reading that and judging what song you're going to play next on the strength of how they've reacted to the previous stuff. And it all sounds a bit weird, and most bands don't do it because I think they just have a set list and they play it. But
Mm.
I'm always conscious about what people are enjoying and tailoring it to making it a better experience for everybody.
Mm. I mean, as you mentioned there, you don't see it very often. I mean, I've only seen kind of a couple of blues musicians kind of do it. I mean, I don't know whether it's something to do with
I
blues
don't know. We
artists.
play rock, so I don't know.
Well, there's blue, yeah, but there's a bit of that. There's a bit of blues. There's a bit of everything.
There's a bit of
Uh,
everything.
yeah, I don't know whether it's an interesting one. I mean, maybe it comes from that improvisation in the early years
Probably.
there.
I think it probably is. I think probably the improvisation means I'm not rigid with stuff.
Hmm.
So it's always that kind of fluid thing of, you go where the night takes you, you go where the song takes you, you vibe off your audience if they're feeling different things, or, even how
Hmm.
you feel on a night. You could be feeling really crap and you want to play like some slower stuff.
Yeah.
And every single thing factors into what makes that gig different. And I think that's a really special thing, and that's what makes gigging unique and each individual gig unique.
Hmm.
Because it could be that you've had the journey from hell getting there. It's taken 7 hours, and you've sat in a van, and you've not had anything to eat, and you're just like and stressed out. But then you get on stage and you kind of like just let rip because you're just getting all your frustrations out that you've been sat in a traffic jam for 7 hours. And it's little things that all feed into making that one gig different to the last and making it different to any other one that you're ever going to do.
Hmm.
And I think that's the wonder of live music and performance.
Hmm. I've seen a lot, from the gig photos and such that you've gone for that Music Man guitar. I mean,
Yeah.
which, I don't see that kind of very often with guitarists. And obviously, we've seen a lot of people go with Gibsons and Fenders and such. I think there was even on your Facebook, there was a bit of a debate of that you should get a Fender, even though you have one, um, from a while back. What is it about that Music Man guitar in particular that made it kind of the one for you?
Originally, because I got it when I think I was about 14.
Mm.
And basically I was really small. So back then I was tiny. I think I weighed about 6 stone. And I was like this little girl that, 5 foot, probably not even that big, little girl that had to stand up holding a guitar because
Mm.
for performing at jam sessions. And I was just like, everything's really heavy. And I tried the Petrucci and I was just like, it's really light and it's really comfy. And the next thing, because I've got tiny hands, they're really, really small. And I was like, well, it fits my hands because it's got a really thin neck. It's really comfortable. It's got a two-way trem. So, because I mean, I had Satriani guitars and they had Floyd Roses, and it's just like, you can't do out with them. You break a string and you absolutely screwed for the rest of the gig. So it was like, right, get rid of them. Not playing that anymore. I want something that's easy to use. I want, in a sense, a Strat, but that's got a thinner neck, that's lighter, that's comfortable. And I found the Petrucci and I was just like, oh my goodness, this is the best thing ever. And with it having the humbuckers as well, it really screams. Um, I mean the Fender, the Strat that I got that I think at 12. It's a Strat Plus Deluxe. I still use it on gigs now. It's my drop D guitar, is that one now. But it's a Strat Plus Deluxe. And then Dad changed out the lace sensors and put stacked Seymour Duncan humbuckers in, and then coil tapped into split series parallel. So that really screams as well. But it's just chunkier and it's only 22 frets.
Mm.
And I like the 24 and the
Oh,
two
that's
trim.
it's fair enough. I mean, I like the boldness, the white, going a bit more basic. I know that's not quite as complex, but it just really stood out. When you look at it, you think that's an unusual
Yeah,
guitar
not many
there.
people use them. It's such a good
Mm.
guitar though.
Mm. I mean, it's obviously like a bit of a working person's kind of guitar, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just brilliant. And I've used it ever since I was 14. So it's just I pick it up and it feels like home. It's comfy.
I mean, that's what you want on the road, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Perfect. A question I always like to finish on, I ask every guest that comes on. It's a bit of a hypothetical one. If you could tour with one band or musician from the past and one from the present, who would they be?
Ooh.
No, it's tough. I mean, you've got a
Uh,
very eclectic taste as well, so we
that's
could
the
have a.
problem.
It is.
That's the issue. Oh, uh, oh my
Everyone
goodness.
struggles
Oh,
with this question.
it is a really hard question. Um, Probably from the past, like Prince, probably, because
Interesting.
he was such an interesting musician and musically just like insane. So
Mm,
probably Prince, and then from now, probably Stephen Wilson,
okay.
because I've been obsessed with his music for years.
What do you think it is about Prince? I mean, a lot of people they associate him with, pop, and they think, oh,
Yeah.
he can't be a virtuoso.
I mean, his guitar playing was just like out of this world. He was such an amazing guitarist. And I think as an all-round musician, as a
Mm,
producer, as an all-round musician, everything, his writing, it was just genius. It's pop, but
mm,
every instrument, it's just like you go, what? He's so good at everything. And
mm.
just everything, musicality of him was just like crazy good. So yeah.
It's interesting because I've heard this a lot from musicians. Like he seems to be a musician's musician.
Yeah, I think he definitely was. I think general sort of population would overlook that and sort of go,
Yeah.
oh well, Little Red Corvette and Purple Rain, and they
Mm,
wouldn't, they kind of wouldn't hear the musicality of it and go, blimey, that's insane. They just hear the pop songs that you hear on Radio 2 or whatever.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and I think, if you actually really listen and analyze what he's actually doing in there, you go, oh, that's pretty good.
No, it's always interesting because as you mentioned there, it's like people associate the pop stuff and they think, it can't be that complex. But
Mm,
then you look below, as you mentioned there, the purple rains and such, and there's something going on there. There's
yeah.
definitely some kind of unsung ability, I think.
Oh gosh, yeah. Massive depth to it is, yeah.
Mm.
What a guy.
Of course, for those that want to check out Chantel and Tour, well, you're going all over the country throughout this year, aren't you? There's
Yeah,
everywhere. I can
pretty much.
imagine pretty much everywhere. The link in the description for all of those dates will be below to go and grab a ticket and no doubt see you. I'm sure there'll be the people that are following you everywhere as well,
Yeah.
all over the country.
I hope I can keep it interesting for him. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
It's been
much.
a pleasure.